Well, we're excited to welcome Rachel Warden now to begin sharing with us about KAIROS program, Women of Courage. And she's asked just that I share a video as we begin to do that.
It's a great honor and privilege to meet so many phenomenal women that I'm really looking forward to hearing from in these 16 days of activism.
Often, as human rights defenders, it can be very isolating and it can feel like you're alone. But there are human rights defenders, women, strong women around the world, and being able to share our stories, share strategies, allows us to be able to realize that we're not alone, but also allows us to build on one another's knowledge, one another's experience.
We feel the pains of the women in the countries where we come from, but we also celebrate the joys and the hopes of these women who are rising as victims of human rights, but becoming survivors and developing as women human rights defenders, and are able to participate in peace building and development processes in their own communities or in their own countries.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks for having me. And thank you for the reflection and the service. It really it's very meaningful. It's very meaningful to talk about the work of women peace builders today on Remembrance Day and in the current context. And the reflection really grounded that for me. So thank you. And it's really great to be with you all today. Today is on Remembrance Day, and you often hear to remember is to end all war, and I just keep thinking about that in the context of what you were saying about peace and the Prince of Peace, and it's a day, to remember the impacts of war and the devastating impacts on civilians and women and children as well, and to remember ways to support peace. And so I'm really glad to have the opportunity to talk to you about that today and the work that we're doing at KAIROS with partners in that area. And certainly, it feels even more important in the current context. You talk about the conflict in Israel and Palestine, the conflict in Gaza, in the Ukraine, in Sudan, all these places. We're working with partners, and the voices for peace and the need to amplify those, and the voices that are saying never again for anyone. So in that context, I'm really happy to share a little bit about the work that we're doing with partners with Women of Courage partners on women, peace, and security. I'm going to give a little bit of background on the work and the partnerships, and then I want to hear from you and ask you to take part in a couple of actions. But first I want to hear from you. When we talk about the importance of women, peace, and security, but I wanted to hear from you about what you think the importance of that, those words are. Why do we put those words together, women, peace, and security? Why is this important? So maybe just take a few minutes to jot that down, and then I'd like to hear from you about what does that mean to you, women, peace, and security. While you're doing that, I'm going to look for my PowerPoint. Does anyone want to share their thoughts on this? Why is women, peace, and security so important? Maybe just put your hand up or speak up. Just or.
Well, I'm thinking that women, peace, and security are such basic parts of being a woman. We spend a lot of time thinking and praying for our families, for our communities, for and now in these days, people who are involved not of their own choosing in wars. And I think women, we tend to reach out to others and feel compassion for others. And so women, peace, and security kind of encapsulates basic ideas that women share.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Maybe it's the idea that how often weapons of war are used against women, things like rape and sexual violence, that women are uniquely vulnerable to in the context of conflict.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, yeah. Anything else? Anyone else?
Well, I think also peace and security, as someone else shared, are so essential to then just being able to carry on with kind of daily life things that we might here take for granted. And that applies to everyone, but many things that women would not be able to do should they not have security, for example.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's so many reasons and ways those words are important together. You know, we talk about women, peace, and security programs, and it is, yeah, the impacts of war and insecurity on women, the particular impacts on women, disproportionate impacts on women, but also their role, as you talked about, their role in building peace and building peace at all levels, in community, in regionally and nationally and internationally. So I'm just gonna see if I can. Sorry, I was just trying to change. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the things about, you know, about women, peace, and security too is that women are effective peacemakers for all those reasons, because they are so impacted by they feel the impacts of war, and because they have these connections with communities. They are very effective peacemakers, and there's all this evidence now that shows that they are effective peacemakers. That when women are involved in peace building processes at all levels, those peace building processes are more effective and more sustainable and more durable. And now they've you know, they even have you know, they've done research that shows that they're 35% greater, you know, more effective, and they last 15 years longer. So there's all this evidence now for these things that are, you know, we've talked about, they're kind of intuitive, that women are effective peace builders. And the other thing about that, though, is that that isn't really recognized always politically, or is it recognized financially in budget? So often, you know, women aren't represented at the table. You know, when there's negotiations for peace, there's an absence of generally of civil society, but there's an absence of women. And there's very, even though there is this recognition and evidence now that women are effective peace builders, there's very little money that is dedicated to women peace builders. So part of our work with partners at KAIROS is to support women in representation in peace building, and also to advocate for more political support and financial support for women. You saw that video. That was what we started with. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on the work that we're doing with partners in the Women of Courage program. But before I did that, I wanted to thank PWS&D and the Presbyterian Church for their support from the very beginning of for this program, for the Women of Courage program. We've received very generous and dedicated support for the program from the Presbyterians, and we're very grateful for that. This is a program that was developed with partners over a number of years. And it was developed by partners who were teaching us, and we learned about the particular impacts of war on women, and the disproportionate impacts, including displacement, increased violence against women, increased insecurity. But we also learned about the role of women in peace building, and the important role that they play in all levels of peace building. As well, that this work is not very visible, is not supported very much, and is not visible. It is more recognized now, but at the time when we were developing this program with partners, it wasn't that visible. So part of the objectives of this work with partners is to increase that visibility. This is a slide that shows kind of it's kind of a summary of the program, the Women, Peace and Security that we're currently supporting. This is now, it's a 6-year program with Global Affairs Canada. So we received some funding from Global Affairs Canada that's matched by the generous support of people like yourselves. And this is work of long-term partners at KAIROS, including partners in Colombia, the Organización Femenina Popular, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Héritier de la Justice, in South Sudan Council of Churches, and in the West Bank, in Palestine, WIAM. And these are partners that live in they're quite different contexts, but they share contexts that are very violent, with high incidence of human rights violations, and particularly violence against women, and violence against women, and protracted conflict. So they're very different contexts, but also quite similar. And the partners come together in the work that they're doing to increase the participation of women in peace building processes. And although they come from very different contexts, they are doing similar work and providing psychosocial support, human rights training. They work with male allies, and they get together and they exchange experiences and learnings and strategies, so that they can become more effective peace builders. They all come together around what we call kind of a theory of change, and that is basically that when you provide support for women, women who are themselves victims or survivors of conflict and violence, you provide psychosocial support, legal accompaniment, human rights training, so women can regain their dignity and become and know their rights. They can become more active. They do become more active in peace building processes, and we've seen that over the course of the program and working with women. We've seen there are more women involved in peace building processes at different levels, in the community level, in regional level, in negotiations. There were more women politicians in South Sudan. They talk about that they actually were successful in advocating for 35% women in parliament, and they have achieved that in some of the regions. So that's as a result of the South Sudan Council of Churches and some of this work. There's more male allies involved in supporting this work, and knowing the rights of women and defending the rights of women. So we are seeing like very clear results from this program and from this work with partners. This slide is just a bit of a kind of a visual depiction of what the challenges and contexts that partners are facing, and again, despite the diversity in conflict in context, there are like a lot of similarities in terms of the militarized conflict, the economic insecurities, and the violence that they face. When we talk about this program to say Global Affairs Canada, where we're and some funders, we need to show evidence. We need to show kind of the theory of change, and that there's evidence that these results are being achieved, and we do show that. We can show that. This is the theory of change. This kind of hugely lots of boxes and kind of confusing a chart is the theory of change. But basically what it's saying is exactly the summary I gave you, that when you provide women with the support they need, human rights support, psychosocial support, legal support, when you provide when you involve men and train them and educate them to be allies and advocates, when you work on changing legislation, you can build peace, and there are more women who participate in peace building. So this is the type of, I guess, chart some of you may be familiar with, that we have to and we do present to Global Affairs and to funders, and we can show that these results are being achieved. We have charts that actually, and we do surveys that show that women who participate in this program, their autonomy is increased, their sense of confidence is increased. They are more critical in their thinking, and we have with partners developed ways to measure that. But really the most I think the most effective and telling way to show the progress and the outcomes of the program are the stories of change. And we have so many stories of change from women who have participated in the program, from beneficiaries at all levels, that talk about how through participation in the program, they have gained more confidence, become more active, become involved in Parliament, become more active in their family and educating their children. There's so many different ways that they express how they've become involved in peace. but I selected just a few of the very many kind of stories of change or testimonies that we have received from women in the different programs. And I just wondered if we could look at them together. I picked one from each of the partners, and I just thought it would be good if we looked at these together, and maybe if somebody could read this one from the South Sudan Council of Churches, just so we can hear these stories of change. And I'm getting a bit tired of my own voice, so.
I don't.
Anybody volunteers?
I'll volunteer.
Okay.
This is from Christine Anita Phillip, a longtime member of NWP or Women Link. She is now a nominated member of Parliament. I carry the voices of women and messages of peace in the community, church, and in government, urging everyone to work together to bring peace to South Sudan. I'm also involved in lawmaking at the legislature. I think these are areas which we can work collaboratively to bring change and peace to this country.
Thank you. Thanks. So what are any impressions after hearing that? Any thoughts?
There's a big focus on collaboration. I noticed that this individual is using phrases like work together, collaboratively. And that's what spoke to me about this quote.
And that's a very female part of leadership, which isn't always present in male leadership. The collaboration.
Yeah. The Women Link is of the South Sudan Council of Churches is absolutely they're amazing. They're just, I think, some of the bravest women in the world. I had the opportunity to visit South Sudan, to go to Wau, which is in the north. It's a city that a few years ago was just people didn't visit. It was too dangerous to visit. But these women lived there, and they formed this women's link that is, women of the church, also the women who are now in Parliament, women entrepreneurs, and each month they have a vigil for peace or a prayer for peace. And the Women's Links do this throughout Colombia, and it's just amazing. I mean, it's not a passive thing at all. The peace, they go to the markets and they pray very visibly and very vocally for peace. And I mean, we talk about it with the government as an advocacy. It is advocacy as well, and it's been incredibly powerful. And they actually came up, the Women's Link came up with a 10-point kind of agenda for Pope Francis when he was visiting. He was in South Sudan at the beginning of this year, and it was read in Parliament. And when the Pope spoke about his visit, he referred to this 10-point agenda that the Women's Link had developed. So yeah, they do work really collaboratively. They are like amazing women, and these women who are now in Parliament are encouraging more women to be in Parliament. So it's quite inspiring. Trying to. Okay. This is a story about a woman who participates in the program in Colombia, Organización Femenino Popular. Does anyone want to read this one?
I will. Go ahead. Okay, this is Christine. I will. This is Magdalena from Colombia. She first heard
about the OFP through her cousin. She said to Magdalena, "Come to the meeting. There are some crazy ladies there and you will like them." So she went to her first meeting with hopes of finding other minds like hers, crazy women fighting for their rights and for a better future. These women met in small groups. During the worst of the conflict, they were forced to hide low, to meet in backyards and small rooms, but they persevere. Magdalena remembers these times with pride of having survived and established her roots in San Pablo. With the support of the OFP, she got the necessary confidence to have her own small store called Confiando en Dios. She is the proud owner of a store that sustains her family and empowered her and her community.
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, and confiando en Dios is confiding in God. Yeah, and so this is a story of a woman that we met last time we were in Colombia. Any impressions of that that account with that?
I think the determination, they had to find places to meet when things were more violent or more difficult. So they continued to meet in their small groups and were able to continue their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Organización Femenina Popular is over 50 years old as an organization. It started as part of the diocese in a place called Barranca Bermeja, and yeah, they have been they talk about weaving peace. They have survived 60 there's been a war for 60 years in Colombia, so they have survived and as an organization and as a women's movement for that long, because of this, their creativity and ability to meet and to build peace against incredible odds. Anything else about?
I think for me, it's women are willing to risk a lot because they've just had to historically. And that usually means, it does usually mean change, whereas not to bash men, but that often might mean trying to keep the things the same, whereas for women, for them to survive, they do need change, and they're willing to risk greatly to do that.
Yeah. Thank you. And they have these kind of mechanisms to protect each other as well, they call them circles of protection. That they if one of the members of the OFP is in danger or experiencing violence or gender-based violence or domestic violence, they kind of surround them with these circles of protection, they're called. And they have a program called Purple Tents, in which they go out to the communities and they have these purple tents, and they talk and bring visibility around issues of gender-based violence. And they provide women with support, psychosocial support and legal support. So they go with a team of a lawyer and a psychiatrist to communities with these purple tents. So it's a very kind of visible way to show, to show women that they are there, and they're being protected, and they're being provided with some of the resources and the support they need. This one is from WIAM, the Palestinian Conflict Transformation Center, which is a partner that we work with in the West Bank. They're based in Bethlehem. but they work in various villages in the West Bank. Does anybody want to read this one?
Sure, I'll read that one.
Sure, thanks.
I don't know how to pronounce this lady's name. Is it Wiam? Wiam?
Wiam, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's an Arabic word actually. That's the name of the partner organization, and it means,
okay.
I think it means reconciliation in something like a reconciliation in or mediation in Arabic. Mm-hmm.
So WIAM, the Palestine Conflict Transformation Center. Through this programming, I have discovered how powerful and strong I am. I have learned to contribute outside of my family and to make my voice heard, and now teach my daughters to be strong and independent, and my son to be respectful and honorable. We color our futures, and I want my children to have a better future than our present.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is from a participant who received psychosocial support and training through CEDA is the Committee to End Discrimination Against Women. So yeah, WIAM does training and teaches women about their rights, their international rights, and domestic rights as well. So yeah, for me, hearing this in the current context just breaks my heart. But this is the work that WIAM does. And they're, in the current context, they are pretty well confined to Bethlehem, where they're based, where their center is based. They can't they can't travel to go to the villages or the women's groups in the local villages. They're trying their best to kind of reach out to them to provide them with support, but currently the situation in the West Bank is, as you probably have heard, is very violent. There's a lot of settler attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank. So although the focus is on Gaza, and it needs to be, there's also a lot of violence and human rights abuses that are going on in the West Bank. So, but they continue to provide and try to reach out to women, providing psychosocial support in the Bethlehem area, and trying to reach out to the local committees in other regions through like online and other means. So any questions, any kind of reflections on this testimony?
I find it really interesting that they're teaching their sons as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That speaks a little bit to something Patricia shared just on chat in the opening when we were reflecting on the idea of peace. She had said, if the women are safe and secure, it gives the next generation the chance for peace without continued trauma. So yeah, this same thing that was just said, that stood out to me as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and currently, I mean, our partners in the West Bank or WIAM talk about, trauma coping. They're not yet at trauma healing. It's just because there is so ongoing violence and occupation. Yet their work with male allies is quite amazing. And it's in a very difficult context because there has been quite a backlash against women's rights in Palestine as a result of the violence and the war and occupation. yet they're able to bring men together to support women's rights and domestic violence, and advocate for legislation to protect women. So yeah. Anything else?
I'm just thinking what it would be like for the daughters and the son to be listening to their mom, trying to teach them about, for the daughters to be strong and independent, and for the sons to be respectful and honorable. When there's violence all around them, I'm thinking, what would a young person think? I mean, do they think that, you know, well, mom, that's a dated, outdated concept?
Yeah.
Or, you know, how do they have enough confidence in what their mom is telling them to accept what she is saying?
That's a very good point, and it is a challenge, and we heard that. We've heard that from partners. You know, there's a lack of people are losing faith in the human rights system and in the international laws, and these resolutions that are supposed to, you know, protect women and you know, the communities, and staff at WEHAM has said, yeah, particularly now, it's risky to talk about rights, or to talk about the UN Security Council 1325, which is around women, peace, and security, because there is this backlash, and there is this disbelief in it, because it's not what they're experiencing on the ground. So it's exactly what you said. How do you maintain that sort of belief and support for human rights when they're just it's being completely ignored and shattered by the powers that be. So it's there is a real loss of faith, I'd say, in rights and in human rights training, which is such an important part of this program.
Patricia has said in the chat that this also is dependent on whether the father and mother are aligned on this. Is there ever a hurdle when it comes to people's family context to this type of work?
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the indicators. If you know, women face if they face challenges from their partner or spouse about going to meetings, and you know, we ask participants that in the survey, and that does exist, and in some cases, you know, women are able to, I guess, convince their spouses and their family that what they're doing is not only important for them and their dignity and their rights, but important for the family, and then, you know, get the family supporting them in their role and in their participation. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes women continue to experience that backlash, or are prevented from going to meetings, or to, you know, or to participate in the program. So that's why it's so important. The work with male allies, the work with men in leadership, including in the churches, and other faith leaders is so important. They do, WIAM does a lot of work with youth as well in the universities around gender awareness, gender-based training. That work has really, really increased actually over the course of this program, because they see it as so important. The last testimony is from Gather2Grow Justice in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and this is Gather2Grow Justice is very much a legal organization. They're mostly lawyers or paralegals, and they work with communities and women on rights and women's rights, actually training women to be paralegals in their community. So this is a testimony from one of the participants in the human rights training. Does anyone want to read this one? This is the last one.
I can read this one.
Sure.
Héritier de la Justice, Democratic Republic of Congo. The teachings of Héritier de la Justice and the different documents of laws received from them help us to know our rights and how to fight against sexual, gender-based violence. Some women are applying a gender approach in their families, especially in the education of their children. They have broken the silence and are no longer afraid to denounce human rights violations, and have become involved in the search for security and peace within families and in the community.
Thank you. Any thoughts on that that testimony?
I like how active the word denounce is.
Yeah.
I wonder what the response is after they break the silence and they go ahead and denounce human rights violations. What is I assume there's backlash. I mean, there is in Canada. If anyone dares, accuse anybody of rape, although it obviously is changing. What is the backlash? Is there a success rate in bringing men to perpetrators to justice? It might not just be men, obviously, but I'd love to know about that if you know.
Yeah, there is a success rate, and I think because they're such a strong legal team, Gather2Grow Justice, they do follow through with these cases, and they have a lot of trust from the communities they work with. That said, there's still like DRC is described as the rape capital of the world, and it's there's still a lot of sexual violence that goes on with impunity, and there's also the courts and the local authorities aren't always responsive. So it is not. Gather2Grow Justice also works in communities. They work through a network, and so they have kind of hubs or local networks in the community that can provide women with support as well. From where they are. So although Gather2Grow Justice is based in Bukavu, in the city, they work through networks, and so they have a really quite a strong presence in the community, which is very important for protection, for accompaniment, and that kind of thing.
How incredibly courageous these women must be.
Yeah, yeah, they are. Yeah, they're also amazing. They're all amazing women. The women from the DRC are incredible, and you know, the male allies too. The organization is mixed, but they're all just amazing. And now they're also supporting women victims of gender-based violence through economic empowerment projects. So they're very strong on that, and the lessons that we learned from them around economic empowerment projects that are specifically for women, and they're just incredible. They have these projects with piglets, sort of breeding piglets, and it's run through the network so that the women receive a pig. The pig has there's animal husbandry. It has piglets, and then the women are able to keep one of the piglets, and they share the other 4 with the network, and that so they're building their economic independence individually, but also collectively as a network. It's just a really amazing model. But things like that. So they also supporting women who may be rape victims or have experienced other forms of violence through economic empowerment projects. And work very closely with the Pansy Hospital and provide accompaniment to women for medical support as well. As you can, I could go on and on talking about this program. I have lots of many stories, but I wanted to give you a chance as well. Well, this last kind of testimony is one from a male ally, an imam, and it's from also from WIAM from the West Bank, you can see from this quote how important the work is around educating and working with faith leaders as leaders of the community in learning about women's rights and protecting women's rights and supporting seeing the support for women as important obviously for women, but for the whole of the community. So this is just an example of the support with male allies. I just wanted to spend just a little bit of time talking about Colombia, because we're actually going to Colombia next week. And I wanted to ask you to do an action for Colombia. But before I do that, I wanted to show you this video, which talks about a little bit more depth about the work of our partner in Colombia, the Organización Femenina Popular. So this is one that we did with a representative of the Organización Femenina Popular when they were in Canada.
En nuestro país es el país más violento y es donde más resalta las violaciones contra los derechos humanos de las mujeres. Son unos retos muy grandes. Nosotros como Organización Femenina Popular estamos día a día luchando contra eso. Muchos nos dirán locas, pero esa locura de nosotras es resistencia. Esa locura de nosotros es resistencia porque no podemos justificar ninguna violencia contra las mujeres. Nosotros vamos a la personería municipal, a la Defensoría del Pueblo, al Palacio de Justicia y hacemos plantones.
Yo soy el ejemplo de mi barrio, de mi organización. He venido trabajando con mujeres en todos estos diferentes procesos. En cuanto a la denuncia, lo hemos venido haciendo con todo el acompañamiento de las organizaciones como KAIROS, el acompañamiento mismo de la Organización Femenina Popular en la parte jurídica, en la parte psicológica.
Los hombres también deben de ser nuestros aliados. Los hombres también tienen que entender, pero de parte de nosotras las mujeres tenemos que empezar a formarlos, o sea, a formarlos mentalmente, porque a veces hay hombres que en nuestro país el hombre se desarma, pero su mente sigue armada.
Lo que soñamos nosotras con un país en paz, con un país en armonía, con que nuestros hijos puedan salir a las calles con esa tranquilidad, sin miedo, pero sabemos que tenemos que construir esa paz y que esa paz se va a dar, pero con ojos y mirada, o sea, mirada de mujer y rostro de mujer, pensamiento de mujer. Nosotras tenemos que ir transformando día a día esa construcción, ese trabajo arduo, un trabajo peligroso.
Nosotros por eso también le pedimos al gobierno canadiense que ponga su mirada en este proceso.
KAIROS, con toda esa ayuda hemos tenido nosotros una formación muy integral como mujeres sujetas de derecho. Realmente yo soy ese ejemplo vivo. Yo vengo de una población muy vulnerable, un barrio marginado, se puede decir, con muchas necesidades, pero gracias a esa formación, gracias a ese apoyo a las organizaciones sociales, es que yo hoy estoy aquí hablando con orgullo de lo que hacemos de las mujeres de la Organización Femenina Popular. Es un trabajo muy duro, es un trabajo de resistencia, con símbolos, con de todo, pero que estamos ahí haciendo presencia y luchando porque nuestro país de verdad esté en paz. Gracias.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, so what struck you about that that video or that account of the OFP's work, and why do you think it's important?
We have a couple things in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Patricia has compared it to the women who fought for the right to the vote in the early 1900s, closer here to us, but the difference being the violence.
Yeah.
And then Cheryl has also shared, it sounds like the first steps is having the confidence to speak out, finding strength in their search for security and peace. And yeah, indeed, it's very amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, the women in the OFP have been doing that kind of work for 50 years in the context of war, and now a fragile peace process. So we're actually there's a small delegation of us from KAIROS going to Colombia on November 20th. We're going to be there for they're organizing a number of events around 16 days of activism and gender-based violence. And they're working as well with the High Commission for Peace and the Ombudsperson, Human Rights Ombudsperson, and trying to get letters. They want letters from the women throughout Colombia on the importance of peace and the peace process, and the government support for the peace process. They're asking women to write from their personal experience about the importance of peace. But they're also asking international partners to write letters of support, letters of support of why this work is important, what you've learned about their work and the Women of Courage program, and why this is important to you. Basically, letters of kind of support and solidarity that they can show, as well to the government and to supporters, as like this is important to international partners as well. So what I wanted to ask you to do is, if you could write just a short letter. It could be very, very brief, a solidarity message to the Organización Femenina Popular, or you can just even say to the partners in Colombia, about the importance of their work, and what you've learned about their work and why it's important, and just an expression of support and solidarity. And I will take these letters. We'll take these letters with us when we go, and give them. We're actually our first. I think our first event is a meeting with the OFP and the High Commission and for Peace and the Ombudsperson, and we'll present those letters. So I wondered if you would do that for us. I don't think there's time, probably not time for you to write it now. But if you could write a letter and just send it to me, I will commit to bringing those to the OFP. Do you have any questions? I have as well this letterhead here that I can send. I can send it to Emma, and then you can put it on the letterhead if you like. That has the logo of the of KAIROS, of the Colombians for Life, of the High Commission for Peace, and there's the movement. They're part of a movement for peace and against war. So I can also send you that. That letterhead, but it doesn't have to be on letterhead. I couldn't figure out a way to share the letterhead in Word with you, so I'll just send it to Emma. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to send that out.
Yeah.
So we just have a few minutes, and we're so grateful, Rachel, for all that you've shared with us, and it's honestly a lot to take in. But especially we feel connected with the stories of those you've shared. If anyone has a question about the letter writing initiative or about the Women of Courage program, we have time for 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll take our little break. So maybe to get us rolling while anyone's thinking of a question, I'm curious that you spoke a little bit about the difference the pandemic made. But just how many years has this program been happening for, and what's been the over the years, what have you seen? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? And what do you see happening kind of coming up?
Well, I think the situation, when you look at the situation in the world today, it doesn't look like peace is really doing very well. And you can feel incredible despair, and just sometimes you wonder what the point is. But I think the work that these partners are doing is incredibly inspiring, and we do see results. So that is actually what keeps the results that I do see, that I have the privilege of knowing about, because I work with these amazing partners. Like the number of women who are like those stories, those are just a few examples of very many stories of women who have come to the program themselves as victims of violence, and and war, and who are now leaders in those organizations. And we've seen that even in the course of the time that we've been working with them, the number of men who are now involved. And yeah, the emerging work, because now these organizations are talking about the importance of economic empowerment and including economic empowerment and peace building. So, you know, we're working on proposals with them around that. These women peace builders are increasingly involved in climate, in responding to climate change in their communities through climate adaptation projects and environmental protection, but also as a voice, you know, around you know, decisions around climate change. You know, as people who are like women are quite affected by climate change, and also have some pretty incredible solutions or alternatives as they do around peace building. So that's kind of an emerging area of work, and it's what partners are living, right? They're living this nexus of conflict and climate change and violence, and that's the work that we want to support.
Well, thank you. And one last reminder of when you would like those letters for. You said you're traveling so very soon.
Yes.
Was there a day you'd like us to have those to you by?
If it could be Wednesday. So I think Wednesday is the 16th. Yeah.
So
that
we
would be
down the
that would be
information that
great.
you shared, and we'll send that out to those who attended this event.
Yeah.
If anyone missed it. And yeah, if anyone has any further questions for Rachel, do feel free to send them along. You all have my email address, and I can make sure that we try and get an answer as best we can. But we just want to either virtually or kind of real in our spaces we are, thank you for coming and sharing with us, Rachel. And we pray God's blessings on the important work that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.